So hello humans, we are here on a different day and time. Not time, we're just here on a different day.
Different day.
Because I was driving cross country on Monday.
How far did you go?
We went from Atlanta to just shy of St. Louis, which is 8 hours and 8 minutes, which amused me to no end.
Right. And how long of a schwack did you do it? Just in one day?
We did it in one day, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, well, neither of us could really take off more than 2 days from work.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a wild ride. And I am not necessarily a Starbucks person. I am a coffee person. But the problem is that your typical mom and pop coffee place does not get listed on the highway exit sign. So when you're driving down the highway in the US and you are in desperate need of food, gas, whatever, there are these three useful signs, or fewer, sometimes they combine them, which list out lodgings, gas, and food. And there's this wasteland where the only coffee you know is available is from McDonald's, which is somehow worse than Starbucks coffee.
Yes.
And Tennessee, and then keep going north until you get to Paducah. Paducah is the first place after entering Tennessee where there is a Starbucks listed.
Right.
So
Yeah. Like I'm not a huge fan of McDonald's coffee, but I'll drink it if I have to.
Yeah.
Like if there's no other choice. I'm definitely not a fan of our Tim Hortons coffee here. Like I'll choose McDonald's over Tim Hortons coffee, although most Canadians will consider me to be a heretic to even say that. And then for Starbucks, I'll pick a Starbucks over McDonald's, but I'll go for an Americano, which is espresso based, as opposed to one of their coffees, which always just tastes burnt to me.
Yeah.
Like they just taste gross. So the Americano at least is a similar kind of coffee because it's espresso. You can get espresso from any different place. They all kind of taste the same. But if you want like a good cup of coffee, then you've got to know that your coffee shop has the right. Like we have a coffee shop here in town where the guy had bought a $30,000 Italian espresso machine, and it was the greatest Americanos, the greatest espresso drinks you've ever had. Just so good.
Yeah.
And then you're just like completely spoiled for every other kind of coffee. It's got that nutty flavor. Oh, it's with a creme. It's so good.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm completely spoiled. But that's sort of my ranking. I'll choose a Starbucks, then a McDonald's, then a Tim Hortons, and then it kind of. But I will always choose a random coffee shop, a Blends, a Second Cup, whatever, over Starbucks. And over McDonald's and all that, right? Like I'd rather just roll the dice on some random place that is a coffee house.
Yeah.
Because I assume like they wouldn't still be in business if their main thing is coffee if they didn't serve good coffee. So
right, I completely agree. The issue comes in knowing where they're located as you drive through the flyover zone in the middle of my country.
Yeah. Well, that's why you've got to have a person who doesn't get car sick navigating and providing
not have
additional
that.
Information. Right.
No.
So both you and your husband get car sick when
so
they travel.
He wasn't traveling with me. I was traveling with my friend Ms. Brickkitten.
Yep.
And so she and I went down. We were at MagicCon over the weekend, along with formerly known as Tiny Intern, now known as Sai Ersday. Now that she's over 30, she increased her name.
Right.
And so we were down at MagicCon. We were talking about the science behind some of the Edge of Eternities cards. I was handing out tokens. I don't know if you've ever played Magic the Gathering. They have tokens.
Whoa.
I know you're a D&D person. I don't.
No. You have no idea how deep the Magic the Gathering roots go down these parts.
Okay.
Hold on. I don't know if you played Magic. Oh my God. Okay. So these are alphas.
Oh, wow.
Of
I owned
the
those cards once.
Yep, these are alphas signed by the artists
Yeah.
because I traveled to Gen Con with the artists from Wizards of the Coast the year before
Yeah.
they released Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
And I became really good friends with a bunch of them, and they signed the cards the year after when I traveled to Gen Con with them. I played Magic the Gathering when it was a prototype.
That's
with
awesome.
Richard Garfield, where the cards had like they had mocked up the cards, so they didn't even have like the actual artwork. They had just
Sketches,
sketches or stuff from cartoons or just like stuff they were just trying to make it work and then play the game. I then worked at a comic book store at the time, brought in Magic the Gathering cards, taught hundreds of people to play the game, addicted an entire generation in Vancouver, and then just recently sort of gave all my cards to my kids except for the ones that who are playing Magic.
Yeah.
Except for the 3 signed by my friends.
So
please continue.
Sorry. So
That's
I got
awesome.
involved. One of my friends, Lone Falco, his mom is the inventor of the game Set. And so he went to Gen Con every year growing up to help staff the family booth. And he came back the year that they released at Gen Con, and he's like, oh my God, there's this game. And it became tradition that every week I'd go to the local comic book store, I'd get my pull of comics, for a while you could get like an entire deck, and because I am obsessed with land, I remain obsessed with land, I'd pick up one deck and then 2 or 3 boosters, and that was about the limit of what I could afford. Mm-hmm. And then the physics kids, all of us would do all of our homework together, and when we were done, we'd all play Magic. And then the guy I was with my first year of graduate school left the summer between my first and second year of grad school and took all my decks. Mm. So I had my commons that weren't being used in decks. I had no decks. And I stopped. I just stopped until the first year of the pandemic when Tiny Intern was like, oh. Like, there was no words involved, just gesturing and making noises. And cards appeared, and she's like, you can play with my decks. And so I played with her decks for a while. And then at Christmas, several people bought me cards. And it turns out that I have always had a problem with just enjoying organizing cards. So, like, I have from the early 80s Star Wars cards from Topps and stuff. And so once the habit was uncorked, my friend Tanya and we play different colors. She likes to play blue-black. I like to play red-green. We both have many multicolored decks, but like those are where our happy places are. So we just combined our card sets and we play, and Lindsay was like, okay, so we have this booth at MagicCon and I need help staffing the booth. Can the 2 of you come? And we were like, we got you. So we drove down, and one of the things I talked to some of the folks at Wizards of the Coast about doing was introducing the idea of science panels to talk about the facts behind the fictions in Magic. So I may be reaching out to you.
Sure.
Because like you probably play far better than I do. It turns out I like organizing cards.
Oh, I haven't played in a long time.
Okay.
Yeah. The problem with playing Magic really well is that you have to collect a lot of cards and have a lot of, and then spend a lot of time figuring out your decks. So it's I haven't played Magic in probably 5 or 6 years. Like I taught the kids to play Magic and then handed that off to them. All right, let's get started on the episode, and then I've got a couple things we should talk about afterwards. help people understand what's about to happen
I
in
can
the
only
U.S. government.
have one earpiece in, or I can't hear myself. All right, it's going to ask me the episode number.
766.
Okay. And there's no AC down here, so I'm going to slowly melt as we record this episode.
Okay.
All right.
I'm pressing record.
We're good to go.
All right, here we go. Astronomy Cast, episode 766, How Spacecraft End. Welcome to Astronomy Cast, our weekly facts-based journey through the cosmos, where we help you understand not only what we know, but how we know what we know. I'm Fraser Cain. I'm the publisher of Universe Today. With me, as always, is Dr. Pamela Gay, a senior scientist for the Planetary Science Institute and the director of CosmoQuest. Hey, Pamela, how you doing?
I am doing well. I have to point out for the audience, for those who don't know, because they only listen to the podcast, I come up with the initial graphics and name of it, and then you give it a much more SEO friendly. But this is one of those episodes where I'm super proud. My title was End of Life Planning for Your Spacecraft. Yours, more SEO friendly. Mine amused me more. And I just need to share, you are the master of titles. I am the person who writes hokey titles that amuse me.
Yeah. I mean, this is always a tension between us. If people wonder what is the core tension between Fraser and Pamela as a production duo here, is that I want the episodes to be very no nonsense as a standalone and different from the other stuff that we do. Right. Because both of us are doing much more whimsical, news-based, current events. Like, that's our bread and butter. And so this is something that is timeless, will stand, will be here forever. The episode about Mercury, it's called Mercury. Yeah. So, and so often what'll happen is I will pitch you a whole bunch of subjects, and mine are very much, gravitational lensing, right, spiral galaxies. And you will be like, on the deepness of thought regarding. I
don't do that. I do usually plays on words.
You are very punny. Yeah. Or you are very lyrical in the way you describe these. And for me, like, normally, I'm all over that. That sounds great. Those are the kinds of titles that I would do. But for Astronomy Cast,
I know.
It needs to be this archive of just very straightforward, easily accessible things. So this is the creative tension, and sometimes, I win, sometimes you win. Mostly neither of us care enough to make a big stink about it. So, yeah. Your spacecraft has reached the end of its mission. You've done everything you can to keep it operational, but now it's time to say goodbye. How do space agencies deal with spacecraft to shut them down gracefully, protect future missions, and life on other worlds? And we'll talk about it in a second, but it's time for a break. And we're back. So, what led to your thinking about this episode? Because this topic came from you. So,
we first did, so you need to get a launch license. Then we looked at rockets versus the environment. And I was like, I am out of creativity. Is there anything else that naturally follows on that cycle? Well, once they're born, they have to die. And that's literally where this came from, was now that we've launched them, what do we do with them?
But there was a really dramatic mission end that happened earlier this year with the Gaia mission, and we got this sort of blow-by-blow explanation of what was going on. And I think a lot of people were quite puzzled by the extremes that the European Space Agency was going to shut down the Gaia mission. It wasn't just, all right, we're just going to leave it there, turn off the switches, hopefully we'll come back in a couple of years and maybe somebody will be able to get Gaia going again. Who knows? No. They went scorched earth on Gaia.
Yeah, they yeeted it into a heliocentric orbit.
And dismantled its memory block by block, overwriting it with garbage.
Now that I'm not sure they had to do, but
so the rationale for that was that they didn't want the spacecraft to accidentally come back online and to interfere with any other missions that were going on. They wanted to not only be non-functional propellant-wise, power-wise, et cetera, because it still had lots of power. Right? It just didn't have the propellant, and so they had to. It was gonna. And it was built to be super redundant, really try hard to connect with Earth-based satellite, like it was really going to keep trying to do its mission. And so they had to go in and they had to rewrite its memory block by block, filling it with, I think, the names of everybody on the team.
Yeah.
Right. Imagine you just go through your memory of some software application you've worked on, replacing it block by block on the hard drive with the names of people. Like, it is not going to be a functional piece of software by the time you're done with it.
No.
Yeah.
No. And this really, when you think about how hardcore that is, like, in my universe, sure, you just like overwrite whatever the equivalent of the BIOS part of the memory is. But no, they did the whole darn thing.
Yeah, they did the whole thing. They made sure that there is no possible way that that spacecraft can lurch from the grave and interfere. And that their concern about it messing up comms, providing a false signal was just so extreme that they went to this level of finality for the mission. And this is the kind of thinking, like, I wanted to start with this very dramatic example because this is the kind of headspace that mission planners are in. And I think that for a lot of people, that is going to feel very surprising, that the expectation is you've already spent all this money, all this time, all this expenditure to get this thing out into space. Why won't they just leave it? And then maybe some future generation could come along and use it and continue to bring it back operationally. So we'll get to all of that. But let's sort of just talk about this limited lifespan of satellites and spacecraft.
So we have two major things that bring spacecraft to a natural end, depending on how they've been constructed. One is you run out of propulsion, so you're no longer able to change your orbit, lift your orbit, do whatever to your orbit. Now, there are some spacecraft, they put them where they want them, they are fine where they are, let's just leave them there. And even with those, you start to then run into the risk of, okay, so propulsion isn't necessarily my problem, but they could hit something, they could land on somebody, they could land someplace that doesn't currently have somebody's and put somebody's there. There are a whole variety of ways that your no longer fully functional mission could cause a very bad day for a planet where the Earth is a planet, or other spacecraft that are out there trying to live their best life.
And we see this happening about once a year, where someone didn't take the end of life for their spacecraft or their space station very seriously, and it's going to come back down at a random location, almost certainly into the Pacific Ocean, but maybe, just maybe, into a populated center.
And we've also started to see a whole lot of near misses where they've had to radically move spacecraft. And at some point, as the number of spacecrafts continues to grow exponentially, it's going to hit the point where we don't just have near misses, we have actual collisions that create more massive debris clouds than anyone really wants to deal with.
Right. So we've got the situation, like in low Earth orbit, these things could potentially come back down to Earth in random locations. Even leaving them in low Earth orbit, they're going to be, it's a very dense environment, relatively speaking. You know, it's still space, you know, it's wide open, but still satellites do crash into each other. And that if you leave your satellite, it's going to potentially crash into others and you're going to get more debris. The debris is going to crash into more debris. You've got a problem. And then the issue that we mentioned with Gaia is that they can also be a communications hazard, that they're going to be, you know, there's a limited amount of bandwidth. You've got a guy over there screaming, give me a job. Let me give you something to do. I'm over here.
I mean, who among us?
Yeah. Hasn't had to deal with that situation. But there's one more issue with in the outer solar system. We saw this with the Galileo mission and the Cassini mission. What's that about?
And this is the concern of the spreading somebodies, where the somebodies are microbes, bacteria, and other life forms that get carried out there from the planet Earth. And we are learning more and more about worlds in the outer solar system that either in the past or continue to have sub-ice oceans. And there is potentially transfer of materials through cracks, through processing from the surface down into those seas. And we don't want our life to potentially destroy life somewhere else, or just make it so that we're not sure if what we're eventually finding came from us or got there on its own.
Yeah, I always use this example, right? We send the first life mission to Enceladus, and they're like, cyanobacteria, weird. And then they search Europa, and cyanobacteria, weird. And they were on Mars, cyanobacteria, weird. Cyanobacteria is everywhere. And it's all related. It's all just from Earth. Because cyanobacteria just loves an opportunity to take over. All right, we're going to talk about this topic some more, but it is time for another break. And we're back. All right, so we talked about sort of the reasons why spacecraft are, that some level of intelligence needs to go into what you do with your spacecraft at the end. You don't just walk away from your spacecraft. You got to do something with it. So what do they do?
So there are a number of different ways to dispose of your spacecraft. And there's actually international guidelines that when you have something in orbit around the Earth, per UN guidance, they make arrangements with different other organizations. 25 years after your mission is over, your spacecraft should be put somewhere safe. The FAA has upgraded that now that we have so many more things out there to 5 years. You have 5 years to dispose of your spacecraft, people. And so what they're looking at is, let's put solar sails on it, let's put drag systems on it, let's do something with those low Earth orbit satellites that allow us to make sure with certainty that atmospheric drag is able to deorbit them. With things that are further out, we lift them up into higher orbits, or as they did with Gaia, send them on a journey round the sun. And remember, it is energetically easier to remove something from the solar system than to crash it into the sun. So don't ever try and crash anything into the sun unless you're trying to study the sun.
Yeah. I think it's really important to go over this, because we get this question all the time, which is like, why don't they just crash spacecraft into the sun? And you got to know, like, if you ever say like, why don't they just, then you know already there's a really good reason why they don't just. You just don't know the why yet.
Right.
And that is because the sun is actually the most difficult place to reach in the entire solar system. That the Earth is orbiting around the sun at 30 kilometers per second, and the only way to make your material actually crash into the sun is to cancel out that 30 kilometers per second of orbital momentum. 30 kilometers per second is faster than any spacecraft has ever been launched from Earth. It would require propulsion systems that are unyet dreamed of. We literally cannot make a spacecraft crash into the sun. And I defy you, play Kerbal Space Program, make a spacecraft go into the sun. You will realize how difficult and challenging a problem this is. Only through multiple flybys of Mercury and Venus, slingshot maneuvers, can you finally get something into the sun. That things don't drift off into the sun in space. We are at the bottom of a mountain peak. And to get up to the lunar orbit, you have to climb a mountain. To get from Earth orbit to the sun, you have to climb a different mountain, or backwards. I don't know. Anyway, that moving spacecraft dramatically far away from where they currently are requires expenditures of propulsion that is way beyond what it took to even just launch the spacecraft in the first place. So you got to deal with what you got.
Yeah, momentum is the law. It is going to be conserved. You have to transfer it somewhere.
Yep. So you mentioned this idea that they put it somewhere. Can you describe these sort of parking orbits, or sort of what's the term they've got them for, the ones at
graveyard orbits?
Yeah, graveyard orbits. Yeah.
So with geostationary satellites, there is a set altitude where, when you are at that distance from the Earth and in a circular orbit, key is circular orbit, You go around and around the world every 24 hours, which means that if you are planted directly over the equator, you stay over the exact same place in orbit. If you are north or south tilted, you would clearly be both north and south tilted depending on where you are in the orbit. You're going to go up and down a single line of longitude. And geostationary orbits are super useful for communication, super useful for weather satellites. And while it is a huge orbit, because it's so far away from the Earth, there's still squabbling over space. And so when something is no longer in use, they boost it to a higher orbit. The idea being it's in a higher orbit. It's going to get out of sync with staying over the same place. It's going to actually be orbiting in more than 24 hours at that point. Yeah. But atmospheric drag is not going to pull it back down to the Earth because higher, safer, less stuff. And so they just stick stuff in parking orbits with the idea that maybe someday someone will go out with their junk collector, the Wallies of the future in orbit, and start scooping these missions up to do whatever we decide to do with them in the future. That works for things in geostationary orbit. Gaia was out in a Lagrange point, and that is another place that has the potential to get super crowded because we really like to put things there. Now, luckily, the Lagrange points are only semi-stable. It doesn't take very much energy to get yourself out of this balancing point where the gravity of the sun, the gravity of the Earth keeps you balanced so that the Earth and that Lagrange point go around the sun at the same period. It's different rates. You're at different distances from the sun. So if you're on the inner Lagrange point, you're going to be going slower to keep pace with the Earth. If you're further out, you're going to be going faster. But it's really easy to remove yourself from those semi-stable points. And as Gaia did, just put yourself into your own solitary orbit around the sun that allows the Earth and your dead self to meet every few months, I guess.
But it's more than that. It's that you have to expend energy to remain at the Lagrange points.
It's true, yeah.
So you just stop, and this works well. If you no longer have propulsion, then you're no longer able to remain at the Lagrange point. You are going to naturally drift. And then if you do have like a little bit of propulsion left, you can sort of decide where you're going to drift.
They really want you to remove yourself, though.
Yes.
So the issue with allowing things to yeet themselves, I just love that word, by the way, is you don't know what you're going to hit on the way out if you're not steering. And this is the difference between you and I both sledded as kids. And some sleds you can steer because they have little blades on them. And others you just sort of lean and hope. And a spacecraft doesn't even have the ability to lean and hope as it allows either the atmosphere or just instability to move it over time. So the idea is you have a controlled exit from that orbit you should no longer stay in within 5 years of end of mission, and while you're still under control. We don't want any out of control spacecraft if we can help it. They expect this to only be a 90% success rate. It's spacecraft. Space is hard. But the goal is 90% within 5 years for US spacecraft. The rest of the world is more like, meh, we'll give it 25. That's where we are.
All right, we're going to talk about the dramatic end of missions in the outer solar system, but it's time for the last break. And we're back. So we've talked about how you sort of deal with spacecraft here around Earth, but we saw a very interesting decision made for Galileo and Cassini. So how did that operate?
So with Cassini, it was referred to as the grand finale. This was back in 2017. NASA made this a massive press event. They actually asked me to delay launch of a bunch of my programs because they didn't want my little tiny programs to potentially distract from Cassini's attention. Cassini was a flagship mission that gathered gigabytes and gigabytes of data at a time when gigabytes were new and phenomenally large before we entered the terabyte and petabyte world of today. And the thing about this grand finale was this was a mission that had been extended such that they were able to capture the entirety of seasons of Saturn as it went around the sun, and we didn't know that would be something we could do. They were able to evolve the orbit to get closer and closer to the surface and study the clouds in detail. But at the Saturn system, you have Titan, which is a methane-ethane world that we know because of Cassini has lakes and deltas. The Huygens probe was able to catch amazing imagery of this. And this is all the stuff of life. These are carbon molecules. And with so many organics at Titan and the recognition that the chemistry of its atmosphere is out of equilibrium in ways that require either active geological processes, active biological processes, or both is allowed. Titan is a world we don't want to mess with. We want to allow it to be its special little amazing self, even though we already dropped Huygens on it. So we didn't want to crash there. We know that Enceladus is another one of these ocean worlds with its tiger stripes. We didn't want to mess with things there. And so that meant we had to dispose of our spacecraft somewhere where we weren't worried about Earth life being compatible. In the atmosphere of Saturn, and plunging through it to the high density, extreme temperatures of going through that atmosphere seemed like a really good way to dispose of a spacecraft while not risking contamination. So that is exactly what they did back in 2017.
Yeah, and I think, that again seemed kind of weird to people, like, why are you keeping it around? And it's just that you can't predict the future chaotic movements of these spacecraft as they continue to orbit around the planets and their moons, that crashing into one of those moons is kind of inevitable if you run the math into the future. And so, it may take thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, but eventually it's probably going to crash into one of the moons or crash into Jupiter or get into weird orbits through three-body interactions. So as we kind of get close to closing out this episode, I think it's important to say that these ideas about end of life, you sort of mentioned it briefly, that people are looking at putting drag chutes, putting various other methods of slowing spacecraft down, and that this is actually a very invested. Like, people aren't taking this seriously yet. And that there are committees coming together for the European Space Agency and international groups that are trying to put some kind of regulation that all spacecraft must have an end of life plan. And this is not the case today. So right now, you can launch a spacecraft and people are going to say, like, what are you going to do when this thing reaches the end of its operations? You're like, I don't know. Who cares? Right?
That is just a perfectly no longer acceptable.
Well, it is. I mean, like, nobody is going to take you to task yet. But we are probably just a couple of years away from that being the case, that there are zero debris, zero remnant policies that are being put together now by especially the European Space Agency.
The Kessler syndrome is something we truly wish to avoid. The Wall-E future is not the one I want. And unless it's only the cute robots, I'm happy to take the cute robots and leave all of the death and destruction behind.
Who can gently push away satellites as they fly out into space, as opposed to the reality where they're moving at 28,000 kilometers per hour and are like bullets tearing things apart.
So, yeah, we want to avoid the Kessler syndrome. We want to avoid landing things on people's houses. There is amazing statistics that if the current growth of satellites goes up, we're going to start to see human beings getting hit on the decade scale of time.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah, and just like clean up after yourselves, people. Leave nothing but footprints. Take nothing but pictures.
Space footprints.
Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, it's like, again, it's another tragedy of the commons that we are knowingly stumbling ourselves into, that we have this resource, space.
Yeah.
It is incredibly useful for us to be able to do our operations down here on Earth. You can be able to communicate, be able to navigate, learn about the weather, predict, see our impact on the environment. Like, it goes on and on. Farmers to track their fields. Like, there's so many benefits from us having this resource of space. And yet, like we always do, we are filling it and not thinking too deeply about how to share it as a space.
Yeah.
And we're already starting to experience some consequences, but they have not gotten bad yet. We are in the pre-consequence phase of this process, and now is the time to think about how to deal with it.
And it's going to be an amazing future, and I look forward to doing an update on this where we talk more about the new technologies to refuel, to grab and move, to deorbit forcefully.
Oh, that sounds great. Yeah. Let's. I mean, because it's not just like you shut off your spacecraft and call it a day. That
Right.
The kinds of things that people are yelling into their devices right now. Why don't they refuel them? Why don't they refurbish them? This is all an industry that is starting to take off, and in fact, various spacecraft have done this. So I think you're exactly right. Let's come back around in the future and talk about what are the cool ideas to deal with space junk, refurbish satellites, make them operational longer, try to live that dream of a
We'll be
reusable, repairable future.
5 years from now talking about how ISS is getting deorbited. That
Yes.
is something like I'm going
If
to
we're
travel
lucky.
to see Apophis fly by. I'm going to travel to see YR4 potentially hit the moon. And the ISS launching is going to be absolutely amazing.
Like seeing the ISS come down.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it'll be happening in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, hopefully.
Hopefully, but
Yeah. All right.
we'll see.
Thanks, Pamela.
Thank you, Fraser, and thank you, everyone out there. This show is supported by you through Patreon. If you don't have money to throw, we're fine with that. Just go follow for free so that you can get regular updates on everything we're doing, and I will be reading names separately. Rich, that file's coming to you later today.
Thanks, everyone, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye. So I have to say, while I'm thinking of it, I went to post the social media for this episode, and I log into the comment, my favorite podcast has a dog shit website at astronomycast.com. And I was like, oh. And this was followed by, you have the wrong podcast posted. And if that's the only thing wrong right now, I'm okay with that. Last week, we had the kind of attack from China and Singapore. And I don't know what I did to annoy those two countries or what Fraser did.
My top 3 countries, according to Cloudflare, are the US, Singapore, and China. And have been for weeks now. But because there's like they can't literally do any damage to my website.
Right.
I don't care.
Yeah, so I did not have time last week to do what you did, which is rebuild everything from scratch so that it is entirely cached. But I did have to build an entirely new website, and what was killing my soul was normally I would just image the server, spin up a slightly bigger server, fix whatever needed to be fixed, and then downgrade back down to a smaller server. And I made the decision while I was at MagicCon, it can just live on a bigger server. Sometimes you fix problems with money.
Yes. with iron. Sometimes with more processing. Yeah.
And I couldn't get a non-corrupt image. And so I was like, fuck.
Yep. I went through this exact problem.
So I was able to get a complete download of the database that was
That's
healthy.
what I had to do. Yep.
I was able to get the uploads directory that was healthy. And so I just rebuilt everything, spun it back up, and it immediately crashed because China was still the problem. And eventually, Keeper of Maps was helping me, and he's like, I am banning China and Singapore.
Oh.
So I am applying through the Planetary Science Institute for us to get Galileo access to Cloudflare so that we can use their special tools. So I don't need to ban all of China or Singapore. That was never my intention, but it was a necessity that they brought on themselves.
Right. Yeah. Or some bad actors.
I'm
going through the exact same thing. But it's, for me, it's, there's a lot of people coming from China and Singapore. That's weird.
And like Astronomy Cast was going down like 6 times a day.
Oh.
And I...
Yeah, and we don't have anything on Astronomy Cast that needs to run scripts. Like it could be static, like how I'm doing Universe Today.
Yeah, I just didn't have time to do that, and I don't until next week.
Yeah.
This weekend, I'm going to be at the Stellar Collective conference in Boise, Idaho for astronomy citizen science, and sadly, with the government shutdown, none of the NASA folks can go.
Yeah.
And this weekend is both 100 Hours of Astronomy and International Observe the Moon Night. And International Observe the Moon Night is a NASA project. So luckily, this time NASA didn't have to shut off their websites. They just put a not being maintained link. So they got everything posted ahead of time, but none of the live streams are happening. And so I'm with CosmoQuest. We're gonna celebrate the moon. As soon as I get off my airplane coming back from Boise, I'll be online doing that. We're mapping the moon with our new lunar melt project. Yeah. And then next week, I figure out what to do to get a cached version of Astronomy Cast that we know how to maintain. And I hate everything. And honestly, if the only thing wrong is one mismatched podcast, Aviva and I did some pretty amazing fixing. Ali was there checking the back catalog. It's just a nightmare.
Yeah. So I have transitioned the Universe Today podcast over to Patreon.
Yeah.
So they have a public podcast feed that you can use at Patreon now. And that's actually made my life a lot simpler. So if you go to the Universe Today podcast, it's on Patreon. Okay. So I don't have a website for the Universe Today podcast. Okay. It's Patreon. So,
the idea of transitioning our back catalog and all the transcripts and all the show notes into Patreon just killed me a little bit on the inside.
Yeah. So the problem is...
you can't backdate things in Patreon, can you?
You can't. No, you can't. So you can point the feed at wherever you currently store your podcasts. Okay. And it'll slurp them all in as episodes and rebuild the feed. Okay. Including whatever documents you have. But I don't know if it's like if it'll bring in a connected transcript feeds.
Yeah.
I haven't tried. You may want to just try it and see what happens. And then you can forward it from Libsyn over to Patreon, and then it all just takes over. So we wouldn't have a website for Astronomy Cast. That if you went to astronomycast.com, it would forward over to the Patreon.
You broke your own rule of maintaining control of everything yourself.
Well, I still do, because what I recommend is people go to universetoday.com/podcast, and that is a forward over to Patreon.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and eventually I'm going to do my own proper single canonical podcast feed for Universe Today, but it's a pretty, because it allows this tighter integration with the way we do post on Patreon. It worked out much better for me. I was using a service called Fireside, and it was sort of time to move away from them, and so this saves me a ton of money and less of a headache for me. So, Jonas, you might want to try it and see what happens. Fraser, yeah. Classic Fraser quote.
Oh yeah, yeah. So this is what happens. Is he says you might want to try it,
Yeah.
and then it
Yeah, I
turns
recommended
out
Cloudflare. That turned out
3
okay.
days later, without any sleep, I come up for air again, and everyone wonders if I died. And
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. So I've had a bunch of people ask me for my publishing tool.
yeah,
Because it would solve your problem too, right? And it's just like, oh, it's so
it's kludge.
custom built
Yeah,
for
yeah.
what I needed to do.
And I could write something myself. I mean, I
Yeah.
have the same skills you do, and
Yeah.
it's just not a today thing because I still
No, I
need to
know,
write
I
my
know.
talk for Friday.
Yeah.
So
But
next
even like,
week.
maybe we could adapt it to your needs or something. I don't know.
No, I'm just
because-
going to write something.
Yeah.
It's fine. I'm just going to
Yeah.
write something.
Okay. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the implications of the shutdown
I
and
hate
what
everything.
that's going to mean.
Yes.
You already kind of mentioned a bit.
Yes.
But before we do, I want to sort of show a piece of interesting news. So I got a new
What is
telescope.
that?
It's a telescope.
It's very 1980s in terms of you can see into it. It's like
Yes.
Clear Pepsi Telescope Edition.
Yes. So this is a Vaonis Vesper
Oh.
2, a brand new Vaonis Vesper 2. This is the special edition made of clear plastic. And so they reached out to me. You can buy for $2,500 US. There are only 300 of these available. Mm-hmm. So once they're gone, they're gone. They reached out to me and they said, "Hey, Fraser, you're influential in the astronomy space. Would you like a free Vesper 2 telescope?" And I was like, "Hey, I am independent. I am like really trying to maintain a certain level of credibility. I buy my own telescopes,
Yeah.
like my Sea Star.
Yeah.
That's how I roll, so that I can be impartial and
Yeah.
not be connected to any one company." And they said, "It's clear plastic. You can see how it works inside." I'm like, "Okay, send it." So I completely caved.
Oh, man.
Utterly lost my credibility and have sold out to the powers that be. Now, of course, the new telescope arrives, and immediately the 5 straight months of drought and clear skies wraps up, and the monsoons return. And so I was only able to test it for like 15 minutes, and I have some thoughts already, but I haven't been able to do some thorough tests for it. So,
Third Rock Astronomy wants to know how long it will be before the plastic turns yellow.
I'll bet you not long.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't be
UV is a
surprised.
thing.
Yeah, if it's still in the sun, it's going
Yeah.
to start to turn yellow. Yeah. So it looks really, really cool right now, but I'm sure over time it's going to turn yellow.
And I'll be interested. So I tested one of the early Vaonis, and it could not handle winter's nights in southern Illinois. It was just like, it's too cold. I can't, man. Just can't do it. And it made me very sad.
Yeah, they've got a lot of new tech in this thing.
Yeah.
So it's got it's weather resistant. It's got internal heating systems. It's got dew shields. Like, it's got a lot of, this is like 4 or 5
Yeah.
versions down the line from that original
Yeah.
Vaonis. And even like when we played with that first
Yeah.
Vaonis, you're like, oh, this is going to change everything. Like, this is amazing, because you just have an app
Yeah.
on your phone and you control this telescope and you're taking pictures, and suddenly, no matter where you are, you're taking pictures of astrophotography objects that you can't see with your own eyes with this tiny little telescope. I mean, it's the same thing with the Sea Star. It's just it's mind-bending how powerful these things are. So, Alan Gross says, but you won't have it in the sun. Well, you would want to put it in the sun, because you want to be able to look at the sun with it. You put a solar filter in front, and then you look at the sun.
And planets during the day, comets, you need to take, you need to get it out and set up so that as soon as it's twilight, and you can take flats,
Yeah.
There's lots of different stuff involved.
So can you give us the lowdown on what's happening with the shutdown? What should people expect as it relates to NASA, National Science Foundation, the various stuff that you are experienced with?
So things I've been able to find out so far. All NASA science, other than required mission operations, down. No new grants will be issued. Existing grants will continue to be paid out. So if you're on an existing grant, you should continue to be able to bill those hours. If you have a no-cost extension that you need to get in, turn that sucker in, because NSSC is not doing any extensions on those. But they can't issue the no-cost extension until after the government turns back on. So no new grants, no review panels, non-required to keep the mission functioning science will be taking place.
Yeah. I heard they're sending pretty much 80% of staff just home.
Yeah.
They're just unpaid.
Yeah. And in addition, so there was a law passed a few years ago that the people have to be paid when they go back. So they're getting an unpaid vacation that might cause them to lose their house. So it's third rock.
Now, when you say they have to be paid, they have to be paid for the time when they weren't there when they get back?
Yeah, they have to be paid for the furloughed time.
Right.
So
unless they crumble and go get a different job and quit.
Well, yeah. And so three rumors I want to address real fast. Third Rock just brought up one of them. There was a game of telephone that occurred where what was actually said was the number of employees at JPL is going to be reduced to closer to 4,000 to 5,000. So it's going to be another several hundred people fired, laid off. That somehow became 4,000 to 5,000 people were going to be terminated, which would leave several hundred people at JPL. No, it's several hundred terminated, laid off, whatever, to bring the total number down. Now, one of the things that everyone's going yeah about right now is Trump is saying that with the government shutdown, he's planning to invoke massive layoffs where they're just going to flat out fire everyone who is furloughed, which would mean they'd then have to reapply for their jobs.
Right.
No one knows the legality of that.
Yeah,
the most important thing I have heard is do not, for the love of God, check your email, because they can tell if you checked your email. You're not legally allowed to work during the furlough. And if you are caught reading your email, that can be used to justify terminating you. So don't give them any
your
reasons.
instinct would be they can't do that, right? They can't fire all the people who they're furloughing.
But they can try.
But it doesn't. Right. But the point is that under the current administration, what you can and can't do is up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court time after time has sided with the administration. So the reality is whatever the administration wants to do is probably going to be fine. That there are no rules. If you think that the rules are going to protect you, those rules no longer exist.
Yeah.
And it's going to be up to this sort of series of stopgaps vaporizing.
Yeah. And one good thing is they are considering Artemis to be a critical for national security project. So Artemis-related work will continue through the shutdown as they work towards Artemis 2's launch and ultimately Artemis 3. I've heard some really cool rumors I haven't been able to confirm about them landing in a lander that is not Mark II, is not SpaceX, and is an option C, but it's an option C that is also by a known player that is not named SpaceX. So I'm
Blue Origin's Blue Moon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not Blue Moon, Mark 1.
Mark 1.
Yeah. I guess it is Mark 1 Blue Moon.
Yeah, it's the Blue Origin lander.
Yeah, so they're talking about landing in a modified Mark 1. Mm-hmm. So that could be really cool. Mm-hmm. They've basically decided SpaceX is just not going to get HLS working in a useful time scale. So there's that. But the other cool thing is as more and more stuff gets sent to the commercial partners don't face shutdowns because they're paid the same way grantees are paid.
Yeah.
So that is one good thing. But it's all really a mess. And one of the things that is really hurting is we still hadn't heard back on all of the FY25 grant submissions. I know I have one outstanding NASA grant. There was a major deadline last week that hundreds of applications went into, and grant reviews can't move forward for NASA, NSF, NIH, any of the science programs. So we already saw massive delays in when the calls for grants got posted. We saw complete reformatting of a bunch of the programs, and now we're going to see further delays in being able to review it, and people are leaving the field because they literally can't pay their bills anymore.
Yes. Yeah, and so this is the game of chicken that I think the White House is going to play with the government, is can we withstand the pain of being the people who help bring about the shutdown long enough to get the parts of the government wiped out that we no longer care about.
Yeah.
And NASA fits squarely in this. Science funding fits squarely in this. And so it's this game of chicken. Can they who can outlast the other?
Yeah, one of the things we're looking to do with CosmoQuest is Patreon supports our day-to-day activities. Thank you all who support us on Patreon. You allow us to exist. We're going to continue to do our hangout-a-thons to pay for the things that go beyond day-to-day maintenance, the things that normally would get paid for through federal grants, that those grants simply do not exist anymore. And so we've moved our hangout-a-thon out to, and I'm going to be sending an email out about this later today, we decided this morning, they're getting pushed out to the weekend of December 5th. And we're going to be looking for funding that allows us to bring back the educational, like actual classroom materials development that used to be funded by NASA. NASA's no longer funding that. Full stop. It's not just us. Full stop. Yeah. We are looking to fund some of the programs that we've previously done through the National Science Foundation. So expect a very different looking hangout-a-thon that is... We are looking for major help to keep science going in this country.
It's going to be a tricky time.
Yeah. We already saw the decreases starting in 2023.
Yeah.
As flat became the new increase for NASA budgets, and the number of people in our field is just going to plummet.
Yeah. It's interesting because the original plan for today's episode was to talk about fiscal year 2026.
Yeah.
And it was going to be kind of good news.
Yeah.
Which was that Congress, like the funding for NASA, they had decided they were going to go with Congress's funding, which continued funding for the different missions and plans. And now this shutdown sort of, because, it was sort of like by October 8th, that they was what the White House administration had wanted all these missions to be shut down by, and Congress was going to be overriding that, and then we wouldn't see those things shut down. And so I don't know what happens now.
I don't either. And the Supreme Court has said that they're going to allow Trump to do pocket rescissions, which means that despite prior case law, they're going to allow the president to defy the funding dictated by Congress to make cuts of his own choosing. And my dog is like, "You are clearly upset. Let me cuddle you."
Oh, yeah, let me cuddle you and help you get through this traumatic emotional experience of space science being furloughed.
Oh, hold it.
And so I can see now, like if I try to reach out to a NASA
you didn't
person.
See what just happened? Hold on. I had a dog decide to jump all the way up into my lap, and now she's licking out things on my desk.
Like I'm sort of thinking about, like, I've got interviews scheduled, hopefully, with people at NASA.
Yeah.
They can't do it because it'll appear to be work.
No. Yeah. And the International Observe the Moon Night is Saturday. And that's something that NASA has been organizing more or less since the International Year of Astronomy in 2009. And all the live streams are just not going to happen.
What a mess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, on that note, on that happy note, thank you everyone for hanging out with us today. Thanks in advance to everyone who's going to have to edit this nonsense. We really appreciate your help. We've got lots of, we're going strong. We're going to just keep
fine.
Spacing and sciencing and newsing at you until you are feeling like you're still completely in touch with all of the nightmare horror show that is crumbling around us. Thanks everyone.